Hi, I am Shubham Singh, and today I am going to present the topic Generation of X-rays, which is based on chapter 13 of Girolami textbook. So, it is basically our assignment, and I'm going to present it. So, we will cover like various topics like laboratory X-ray sources, types of X-rays, X-ray notations, different types of notations are used, and synchrotron radiation. So, so let's begin. So, first, introduction of X-rays. Uh, the X-rays are basically the electromagnetic waves, but they are not firstly found as electromagnetic waves. These are found by the these are discovered by the a German scientist Wilhelm Röntgen, and basically these are through cathode tubes. These are found from cathode tube rays because they were initially the cathode rays were not their intensity is not that much high that they will reach the other far sources, but here it is reaching the far source. So initially it was called an unknown source. It was generally an unknown source, so it was called X-rays. It has very short wavelength, uh, approximately 1 angstrom, and which it is highly energetic and penetrate through the bodies. So that's why it is also used in medical purposes for scanning our body parts. In crystallography, it is highly used to study the structure of the materials through diffraction and uh, safety. High doses can be harmful, required safety and protocols and lab settings. Yes. So if we are using in lab, we should be highly safe. What we should do in a highly safe environment. And laboratory X-ray sources. So basically, laboratory we produce it by hot cathode tube or X-ray tube. Hot cathode tube is generally like cathode tube in which we generally electrons as accelerated to a target metal. X-rays are emitted when electrons hit the target and lose energy. So electrons hit the target, and basically these are performed at maybe at high voltage or high current also. So high voltage, higher energy X-rays are generated because the electrons when give energy to excite no, move that electron out of their shell. And at higher current, more X-rays are emitted by the anode, and the X-ray becomes more brighter. We get higher intensity, basically. So, but these are having some limitations because they become very hot quickly. So these require some cooling system to work better. So generally there is some water going in, water going out, so to cool the system. Uh, so basically we can also reduce the heat by changing this anode with a rotating anode, because when the electrons hit it, so it will get damaged basically by heat or the other radiations. So if it is rotating, the only one electron will hit the stop, only the electron will hit a spot at a one time, and the at other instant it will the anode will rotate and the electrons will hit at the other point. So it will not, the heat will be spread out, so it is beneficial. It is So these are the methods through which we can basically reduce our heat rotating anode. So prevent melting and more stable and intense X-ray beam we can also get. So there are also like sources in which we have uh, a chamber in which there is for focusing, basically focusing the X-rays. There are like chambers of elliptical chambers in which we have two foci, and one we have in one we have kept the source, and another then it will hit and at the other focal spot. So it is basically micro focus source it is called. So and now let's move on the next slide. So types of X-rays. So there are various types based on how the electron hit the targeted metal of the anode. So we are basically, there are two types, continuous and characteristic. The continuous is also called white radiation. So how it is produced? So we can clearly see that there are continuous in its spectrum is continuous, but there are also some spikes in between. These spikes denote the characteristic radiations. So produced by the deceleration of the electron in the target broad spectrum of X-rays up to a maximum energy, not precise for analysis as it is not element specific. So we can say that fast moving electrons, when they come, they lose their energy. They lose their energy, and when they pass by the nucleus, so these energy which is loosed, it's continuous. Like they will come, and continuously they are losing the energy. So it will form a continuous spectrum. So this is continuous X-rays. Different energy will be radiated out. So this will form a continuous spectrum like this. And now, but the characteristic how? Because when, like, suppose electron hitting an another electron in the shell, it will hit the electron and make it move with itself out of the shell of the electrons atom. It will create a vacancy here. You can clearly see there is a vacancy. These will be filled from the electrons from the other shell, and when they come down they will lose their energy in the form of X-rays. So based on that, they're like, if they come from the nearest shell or the other shells, the different energies will be emitted. So these are the notations like K, L, M. These are so going on. K and L denotes like, if there is a vacancy in the K shell and it will be filled by the electron. So if it is filled by just nearby, it is K alpha. If the second nearest, then K beta. If the third nearest, K gamma, and so on. And if there is vacancy in the L shell and it is filled by the nearest shell, so it will be called L alpha, then L beta, L gamma, and so on. So these are clearly the, and it is not element specific and ideal for, it is element specific and ideal for precise analysis, because these spikes we observe, these are different for different atoms, different elements. So these we can use for their understanding their crystallography. We can use this for studying it. And now X-ray notations and transcriptions. So I have clearly said that what are the transcriptions we are using, like K alpha, and basically K alpha, like notation KLM denote the electron shells, alpha beta shows the transitions. If it is nearest transition, it is alpha, second nearest beta, third nearest gamma, and so on. And K alpha lines also have K alpha 1 and K alpha 2. Like, it has slight variation in the alpha line also. So it is, and we can create a diffraction pattern using these two lines. Like if it is from 2p 3 by 2 to 1s, 2p 1 by 2 to 1 by s, 1s, so it will be low intensity basically, and the upper one is high intensity, preferred for precision. So there are basically, we can see here is L beta 1, L eta, L alpha 1, L alpha 2. So these are nearby. K alpha 1 used in crystallography for sharp imaging. K alpha 1 is used in crystallography for sharp imaging. X-ray absorption and filtering. Absorption energy. Sharp absorption at specific wavelength. So these are basically like copper X-ray spectrum, emission spectrum, cutting both wide radiation and characteristic. Like we can see that it is wide radiation and that is characteristic. Copper alpha and copper beta. There are spikes here, copper alpha and copper beta. But these can be blocked out by certain filters we use. These filters as a absorption spectrum. These absorb certain, only certain characteristic wavelength. Like if we use uh, nickel nickel edge, then it is unwanted. It will block. It will block the K beta and only allow the K alpha. So we will not this getting this whole spectrum. We will only getting K alpha spectrum. So it will be like this. So it is also helpful in filtering out the X-rays, and in generation of the monochromatic beams, basically. So syn synchrotron radiation. So here, like when we are studying the very small particle, so these require highly very small wavelength, which we cannot generate specifically with just in a small hot cathode tube. We'll need a large area. We'll need several very high speed electron, for which if we want to generate very high speed electron, we need mechanism for uh, like accelerators, magnetic accelerators for their. So we need for very small crystals, hot cathode tubes are too weak to be useful. So basically, these structures, very large structures, electron, basically there are boosters and accelerators, magnetic accelerators, which will continuously accelerate the electron before hitting the target metal. So these will target metal of very small crystals. So basically, we get very high energy electron, and these whole structure is built like this is at the advanced photons source as at national laboratory. So these synchrotrons are used here. So basically, these can be ideal for studying small crystals, proteins, and high resolutions imaging. And layout, what is the layout? Basically, X-ray beam is thrown here, experimental station. We can see it from here, like it was accelerating and finally hitting the structure. And so the conclusion is basically X-rays are very high energetic beams, and we can use it we definitely use it in daily life with like in medical purposes or in studying the crystallography, and it is helpful for us in many aspects. Like after the discovery of the X-ray, it is we have gone very far through. It is also used to capture the radiations coming from the universe. So it will give us images, certain images which we cannot obtain from visible spectrum. So that's why it is very useful. So thank you, and thank you for this opportunity to present. Thank you.